Great. Can you guys hear me? I'll just talk real loud. All right, let us pray together. Dear Lord, we are so ever mindful of the ultimate sacrifices and devotion made by the men and women in uniform all over the world. Help us to never take that for granted and protect and guide them always. We thank you for organizations like this, Veterans in Politics, that defend veteran interests and fight corruption in the political arena and in our community. We ask, Lord, for your blessings on today's interviews. We thank you for the candidates that have taken from their time to be here and participate. We ask you give them a wise mind and a caring heart to make a real difference in their political careers. Father, please put the right people in offices that'll champion freedom, do what's right, and defend our Constitution. And now let us end our prayer with this morning with the way our Lord taught us. Those of you that know this prayer, join me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
All right, thank you, George. Next up, Jesse Law, Clark County Republican Party Chairman, for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that a flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right, everyone may be seated. Thank you, Jesse. A couple of quick ground rules on how we're going to be working this thing before we get going. We'll start by having the panel members give about a 30-second introduction of who they are. Then the candidates will be given about 1.5 minutes each to introduce themselves and why they're asking for an endorsement. This is not a debate, just so everybody knows. It's an interview, so no candidates can ask each other questions. Once a panel member asks you a question, you'll be given about 1 minute to answer their question. And I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to be stopping people mid-sentence, but please wrap up your answers in a timely fashion. Panel members, you need to ask questions within the preview of which office the candidate is seeking, and your questions need to be direct and please to the point. And at the end of the question and answer portion, each candidate will be given 1 minute to make a closing statement. Any questions? No? All right, with that being said, I'm going to start with our panel giving a brief introduction of who they are, and we'll start right here.
My name is Stephanie Phillips. I've been a resident of Las Vegas for nearly 30 years. I'm the owner-broker of Cambridge Realty. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. They're 17 and 20. And thank you, Steve, for hosting this today and having this. I'm excited to be here.
All right, good morning. My name is Stephen Fortune, and I am a United States Air Force veteran. while in the Air Force, I was a security police member, along with performing Sergeant at Arms for the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Campanelli, and also Benkin. And now I've been Las Vegas resident, Nevada resident since 2012. And which also too, my course of work post Air Force was contracting in Southeast Asia and the Middle East from 2007 up to 2019. And from 2019 on, I've been retired due to jobs in the Middle East here. But it's I'm proud to be here, proud to be a part of this panel, and God bless you all.
My name is Rob Lauer. I joined the U.S. Army at age 34 in the middle of the Iraq War, became a military police officer, served. I've been a political reporter for the last 6 years with my own news outlet, 360 News, which has about 7 million views a year. I also write for the Nevada Globe. And this has been a great organization that I've been a part of and done this for many, many years. And this is a very unique opportunity for candidates and the public to see. So I want to thank Steve for putting this on. Thank you, Steve.
It's not on. Top my name is Jeff Black. I've been in Las Vegas for 35 years. Came here through the military, stationed in military base. I currently work for the Department of Family Services as a child development specialist.
My name is Paul Jackson. I'm the chair of Veterans of Politics for the northern part of the state. I'm a professional in politics. At the moment, I'm the director of volunteer engagement for the state. Is it plugged in now? The state QP. This is campaign 39 for me. So I've been around a little while. Military service. I was in the Royal Marines, 4-1 Commando, 4-2 Commando, and then SDS Special Boat Service. Served with U.S. Marines, Cold-blooded and I served a small amount of time with Second Seals. And I'm proud to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Jones, Director of Veterans of Politics. I just wanted to apologize for having some technical difficulties with the microphone. Thanks, Paul. Anyway, just real quick, I mean, like I said, I'm the Director of Veterans of Politics, and then also I do the podcast with Steve. I just want to thank everybody for coming.
Hi, I'm Twisted Sandoval.
I'd rather get sound, fuck the levels.
My bachelor's degree in administration and marketing, and probably law school after that. I'm also the director of Vericoin, and I'm very happy to be here.
My name is Michael Broadway. I am a real estate broker, and I am also a president of marketing with Vericoin, which is, everybody knows Bitcoin. This is a Bitcoin launch. Deals with borrowing, lending, and mortgages on NFTs. If you all know what that is, if you don't, hit me up later. I will explain it to you. And anyway, I own the domain Crypto Realty, so I'm going to be putting together the ability to buy real estate with cryptorealty.com.
Hi, good morning. My name is Leonard Cardinelli. I'm a 25-year retired police lieutenant in North Las Vegas, and I'm the current president of FOP Lodge 443 and former union president of the Police Supervisors Association. And in case you're wondering, there's probably not much I haven't seen, so it's been a long career. And I'm good friends with Steve Sanson, and I'm proud to be here.
I just want to say real quickly, it's a big honor to have the veterans being a part of this process. It's an honor to have you guys here. Thank you for being here. All right, now it's time for the candidates to just speak a little bit about yourselves, and about a minute or so each. I'll start right here, this gentleman.
Hi, my name is Neil Starr. I'm the Libertarian candidate for United States States Senate. I'm originally from Jamaica, then I lived in Florida for a few years, and then moved to Las Vegas in '98 and loved it, and been here ever since. In 2002, I ran for U.S. Congress with the Libertarian Party. And I'll just say things haven't gotten better since then, and so now I'm running for Senate. Thank you.
My name is Corey Reed. I've been a hospitality industry worker for about 20 years now. Spent the past 10 years, 12 years working on the Strip. Past 10 years as a member of the Culinary Union through the Bartender Union. And basically the reason why I'm trying to run is I see a lot of decisions getting made by those in DC and those at the top that affect people like me, the 9-to-5 workers, the shift workers, the hotel workers. And I don't think they understand how it actually affects the people. So they have their missions that they're going to full break, but they don't understand those of us that get caught in the lane, how it affects us. And I think that'd be a good fit because working as a bartender on the Las Vegas Strip, not only do I work with people from every place in the world, from every background in the world, and obviously more veterans than you can shake a stick at, I also serve people from everywhere in the world, every background. If you want to know somebody's street thoughts, talk to them at 2 a.m. at a bar, because that's when they're going to tell you what they really feel. That's when they're going to tell you what they need. And I'd just like to thank you guys for having me here. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is...
One second.
All right, guys. So my name is Mendenhall. I'm honored to be here. The reason why I'm asking for your guys' endorsement is because I believe in the veterans, and the reason why we have the freedom to even be here today is because of what they have done for me. So a conversation that was born from Jim and Steve, we were sitting there going back and forth, and we wanted to know the why behind the fact that we had 22 more veterans dying via suicide than in combat. And so I didn't just want to talk about it. I wanted to find the solution. I wanted to find the why behind it. So I started building out an exit and reentry program, because when I saw that we haven't built something out since 1775, that made me irate. The second piece is then I saw, as I delved in, it wasn't just one piece, that MOSs weren't transferring, that so many other pieces were missing, and I wanted to make sure that I'm doing my part to give back to the country. I'm a business person. Numbers make sense, execution makes sense, plans make sense, and I can't do this alone. Thank you so much. Mendenhall for United States Senate.
Testing. My name is Carla Poliak, candidate U.S. Senate. I can endear with issues close to the heart of everyday folks because I am one of them. And it's that reason that I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate. And I have numerous concerns and specific Social Security interference by our elected officials, whereas what's the name? Alan Greenspan told Bush, look, we need to increase the age of eligibility. And Barack Obama did that from 62-65 to 65-75. That's not correct. And besides that, Alan Greenspan does not have a degree in geriatrics. So that's just one of my concerns. The other one is foreign aid. Why do we give this money away when we need it to take care of our people first and foremost, and we don't? Secondly is the homeless. We have such an abundance. We're going to be a country of rich and poor, just like Mexico, if it continues. So also now we need to quit apply seriousness on criminals that kill people. We need to execute them and quit draining our budget. That's the foremost concern of ours, is that our budget needs to be applied to the health, safety, and welfare of U.S. citizens. Furthermore, we need to make English the official language. Illegals have no constitutional right, and we need to keep everything simple. True also is that we hear about, abortions. Why doesn't somebody mention sterilization? That's what one of my
thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, this is the time now where panel members will be asking questions. Also, keep in mind that when you answer these questions, you'll have about 1 minute or so. Okay, thank you very much. I guess the first question I'll give to the person who's closest to the microphone that is working. So whoever that is, that will be, there you go, sir. Go right ahead.
This is going to make me do it. Okay, my first question is, would you be in favor of and would you vote for making it a federal hate crime to kill a police officer on duty?
Can we just go in any order?
Go ahead, yes.
Absolutely. I think that this is one of the biggest things right now that we are kind of having a conversation back and forth about our police, and we need tangible ways to back it up, and we need consequences that are intense, because our police officers are also serving on the front lines, and I have friends that have served that are not serving anymore, and fireworks, gunshots cause them to shudder. So they have served on the front lines, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of them, that we actually have punishment, because right now the catch and release or the slap on the hand is not doing it.
Thank you. I just, real quick, and I apologize for this again, but now I think we're back on track. Panel members, do me a favor. When you ask a question, please pick out which candidate you specifically want to answer the question.
Yep.
If it's a general question that you want each candidate to answer, then please do so and ask which candidate you want to start. Like, you can go right to left or left to right. It's perfectly fine, just so they're not confused.
Possible at this point to have each answer, because I would be interested to know if they're all.
Okay, all right, yeah, very good. So there's 3 other candidates that
Who wants to answer that question next?
You want to repeat your question?
Yeah, go ahead, repeat it.
The question's for Carlo Poliak. If elected, would you be in favor of and would you vote for making it a federal hate crime to kill a police officer in the line of duty?
Oh, absolutely. I'm there right now on the front line of the police. This is unheard of. Police being killed for years. You never heard of that now. It's become random and normal. No, we need to protect those people's health, safety, and welfare.
If you don't mind, I'd like to qualify it by saying that, so to make it a federal hate crime would be an enhancement on the punishment, just so you're aware, because there are punishable crimes on the books, but making it a hate crime would enhance the penalty.
Did you want either of the other 2 candidates to answer that? Okay, go ahead.
I would be interested to know.
This isn't working, but yeah, I definitely agree with what everybody said so far. There's no excuse for killing a police officer, especially like when they're just doing their jobs, especially like during riots and stuff where people are just shooting at them for no reason. Or what we saw in New York at the time when the cops were just getting shot in their cars for no reason. All those things should be a federal hate crime, definitely.
Thank you.
I guess running for the Senate would also make, that question would be exactly where you want the federal government, a federal hate crime?
Yeah, well, obviously somebody would have to introduce a bill.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I would not introduce a bill for a carve-out for a federal hate crime for police officers. And it's simple. There's 4 categories already in the Constitution for protections. It's gender, national origin, race, religion. And so I don't even know how, if you could, on a constitutional basis, have a carve-out for police officers for a federal hate crime. So I would say no.
Thank you. All right, thank you, sir. All right, let's go to our next panel member.
Hi, my questions are for Mrs. Mendenhall. I looked over your website. It's amazing. I got very educated with you. And one of the questions I have is, tell me how you plan on stop teaching critical race theory, CRT, in schools. What's your ideas behind that?
There's 2 different pieces, and it is checks and balances across the board. So when we take a look at everything, they're calling it different things. You know, they're calling it CRT, they're calling it SAL. So we actually need to do an audit across the board at every single school. Clark County is massive. It's absolutely massive. So it is an undertaking. but we can see the implications and how this has been a domino effect. So I've seen even schools like Paso Robles in California has banned it. They take a step up and they banned it personally. So I think it is, for the schools that haven't done it on their own accord, we need to make sure that we're going in there piece by piece and making sure that we're taking this out. But we also need to bring in something new, because part of the conversation is that people are feeling that they're not represented, or that different minorities aren't represented properly. So we need to have different programs where we elevate these heroes of different color and race.
Thank you.
Okay, and one more topic on that. Do you think our school district is too big and maybe it should be divided?
I do think our school district is too big. I do believe it should be divided. And that's just the start of making sure that we get our state and country back on track to having a good educational system we're proud of.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, next panel member, go right ahead.
Hi, so my question would be for Corey Reed. I spent 30 minutes trying to find a website, trying to find some information on you. Why should I trust you, and why should we endorse you?
I do apologize for that. I am doing this on a shoestring budget, and it's just me and my buddies working out my garage, trying to do this thing. So I do have my friend working on a webpage for me and trying to do all my social media and all that stuff. However, it is getting slow going. We are trying to get it up and running as soon as possible. But if you have any questions, I'm here. I'm an open book.
My question is, what's your credibility? Why should I trust you?
I mean, I apologize. My internet presence is coming, but I'm about as trustworthy as you can get as a person. There's really no way for me to prove that you can trust me unless... I don't know what's really safe for work from all my personal stories working on the Strip, but...
You're wearing a Knights hat. That's a good start. I'm sorry, that was a horrible joke.
I got season tickets to the Knights.
Just trying to help you out, buddy. Just trying to help you out.
It was a great night. Thank you.
He's not wearing a San Jose Sharks hat, so I mean, he could lose credibility with that. Next panel member, please. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to get some of that static out of the way. So my first question is going to go to Mr. Scott. First off, I want to just commend you on running as a libertarian. And so it's a very general question. Usually mine are more specific. Why run as a libertarian? What separates the Libertarian Party from the Republican Party or the Democrat Party?
So I guess the best way to answer it would be, why am I a libertarian? And when I ran in 2002, I firmly believe we should abolish the federal income tax and have a constitutional amendment prohibiting the income tax. I think it's a slave tax. And the Libertarian Party is the only party that is firmly against abolishing the income tax, as opposed to the Democrats, who seem to have no limit to how the depth that they want to tax citizens. The Republican Party merely pretends. So that's why I think the Libertarian Party offers the best choice for liberty on an individual level.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul.
Thank you, candidates. If you were to get our what's my endorsement? If you were to get our endorsement, how would I'd like each one of the candidates to answer it.
Sure.
Starting with Mr. Scott. If you got our endorsement, how would you use it? Where would you put it? How would you advertise it? How would you use our endorsement?
Well, if I got endorsed, I would be very appreciative, and the best way to use it is to win. There's very important issues also dealing with veterans. So like I said earlier, I joined the Libertarian Party to abolish the federal income tax. So the next question is then, how do you pay for the military and veterans? And I think it's important that we have a discussion on financing, because I support If you read my webpage, there's a part that says there should be a.
So could you stick to the question?
Yeah. To win and to advance my agenda. That would be the best way to use an endorsement.
Okay. Next question.
He wanted each of us.
All right, I apologize. Yes, go ahead, sir.
So if I were to win this endorsement off the break, it's going to go on the top of my new website, which is coming. Also go on my Twitter and my Facebook. I'd probably get a couple of those fancy shirts you guys are wearing to rock those at other interviews as well. Maybe a hat or two. But basically, I just thank you guys for the endorsement and keep on keeping on. Trying to, get as many votes as I can. Try to make it past the primary and make it to the general election. Thank you.
Nevada has the highest per capita as far as veterans. So this endorsement would mean everything to me. What I would be doing is putting it on absolutely every single site that I have, and I would be promoting it to the next level. Also, I would be bugging you guys for you to look over every single plan that I have for the veterans, because I did not serve. And I know that every single time I give it to a different veteran from a different branch, they take a look at it and they're like, this is what I've experienced. Let's talk about maybe adding this in, or this isn't a blanket statement. So I would be bugging you. So I hope that you know that when you give me the endorsement, I will be in your ear. And even if you don't, I'm still going to be bugging you. So thank you.
Carla?
I would be grateful with the endorsement of the veterans for the particular reason that I would be working with them side by side to achieve their interest. And the only way we can achieve any type of interest is with available money, and it's due to our income tax. And here again, we have got to stop throwing it away in foreign aid. But I will be more than delighted to reflect the concern of the veterans.
Okay, next question, please.
Yes, this question is for all the candidates as well. In your opinion, what is the main cause of Nevada's lowest ranking in education in our schools, and what should be done to reverse that ranking?
Is that for everybody or for one?
For everyone.
For everyone, okay.
I'm sorry, what was the...
Repeat the question, please.
The question is, what is the main cause of Nevada's lowest ranking in education? And in your opinion, what should be done to reverse that?
All right, well, from what I've just noticed from my personal experience through my friends and their children, I see there is like a lack of respect for education out here as opposed to many other places in this country that I've traveled to and I visited. It seems like the whole idea is people think, all right, well, you don't need a good education because you can just go get a job on the strip being a cocktail waitress or a bartender, and you don't have to know math, you don't have to know how to read and write and all that stuff, which is actually true, and you can have a great job because of the union, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I think a lot of it falls on the parents. They don't care that their kids are failing math so much. They don't put in the effort. And also the fact that most households here are dual incomes, so they don't have the time to help the kids with the math and the reading and the science and whatnot. So I just think we need to do a bit better, maybe smaller classroom sizes if we could. But I think on a federal level, there's very little we can do for this area in particular, besides just trying to get the parents engaged. Thank you.
Okay, right here, go ahead. Yeah.
So the problem with education is not only confined to Nevada. I think education in the entire country, in all 50 states and the district, is a problem. And the way I think you would deal with that is that we move to a voucher system where the federal government would give each child a voucher that would follow the child. Just like when you go to college, you get a Pell Grant, and you take that Pell Grant to any college, state, private, or whatever, and if you go to a state college or a state school, the state will then pay, add in an additional amount. So if you get a federal voucher that follows the child, it follows the child to whatever school, and then the state would then, add more to that voucher.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Jeffrey. To be very honest, I don't think that I have the one sole reason as to why we're failing across the board. As I am looking into every single piece, and even from the federal level to impact, it takes leadership. So that takes collaboration and taking a look at Nevada. My direct impact would be wanting to have a conversation about bringing back things that cause critical thinking. I was in shop class. When you were in shop class, you had to be safe. You had to have critical thinking. You had to make sure the thing that you built stood. I did tractor driving. I was in FFA. I was in parliamentary procedures. I was in so many different things that caused me to be able to put myself out there, have to be a critical thinker, have to grab the mic, have to have a conversation. And right now it's down to the basics because we're saying it's just reading, writing, and things that are important, but we need to add more critical thinking pieces into education because if we just pass them from school to school, that's not the answer.
Time. Thank you. Carlo, you're next.
Education begins at home, and it's very important that families communicate with their children and discuss with them, well, how did your school day go? And explain to them the very importance of why you're sending them there. Is it that's a learning process? Because as it is, you really don't know life, what it is, unless you learn from others' advice.
All right, let's go to our panel for another question.
We have a U.S. Senator here, former U.S. Senator, and he'll attest that the job involves voting on bills, spending bills. That's the primary job. You're one of 100 senators. So in the last couple of weeks, the Senate passed the $1.5 trillion omnibus bill. How would you have voted on that bill, and why, or why not? Robert, for all the candidates. Thank you.
Go ahead.
First off, I'm not in favor of omnibus bills. First and foremost, I think we need to get back to single issue plain English because so many people need to have this translated. And how much time do you actually have to spend to go through line by line? Would I have voted? I would have voted no. So let me just get that straight. I would have voted no. But something that I also think that is fundamentally wrong is that we're having so many different pieces added in there that are special interest. So it causes the real issues and the real things we need to be voting on for our dollars to just be going out the window. So that is my piece. That is what we need to do. And also as a business owner, something that's important is when I got to payday, I didn't get to print more money. We need to make sure we're building a budget and sticking to it.
Right over here. Go ahead.
I'm not sure the details of the bill. You said last week? Yeah, I remember them passing something, but it's a continuing resolution, and I don't think I would have voted for a continuing resolution. I think we need to do how we used to do our appropriations. You present, I think it's an omnibus bill. Everybody gets to review it. You get to mark it up or down. You send it to the president. He can veto it, send it back. I just don't believe in continuing resolutions.
Yeah, so I actually agree with her a lot. My whole thing about these bills is it kind of seems like special interest especially, but they treat $1.2 trillion like it's pocket change. They need to stop doing that, and they need to break it down one by one because some issues in there are perfectly fine. Other ones are not, but trying to add on all those extra riders, all that does is just funnel money to where it doesn't need to go. Same thing happened with the pandemic relief. Like, I don't want to get too far off topic, but they're like, pandemic relief. Let's also shove all this other stuff on the back end that wasn't helping us, didn't help me and my friends, and yet made them millions of dollars.
Carlo?
It all boils down to our giving money away again, as I mentioned earlier. We need to look after the health, safety, and benefit of U.S. citizens. That money needs to be, that's from our income tax. What do we achieve giving money? We're the only country that wastes like that. We need to put American people first and foremost and provide for them. It's going to help them in free medical, and free education in that aspect.
Next question by the panel, please.
How you guys doing? This is for everybody on the panel. Las Vegas is a tourist and customer service style place. and you said you wanted to get rid of CRT out of school and put something else in. What would you guys think about mandating that Spanish and American Sign Language, which are the two most used languages outside of English, be mandatory taught in school from kindergarten through 12th grade to take care of education and giving the children an extra chance, maybe being a translator for a company, making an extra $10,000 because you can translate 3 languages?
So, you want to make Spanish and sign language mandatory. I don't see how you could do that. Why Spanish? So I would not be in favor of making one language over another mandatory. And sign language, I don't think we should force everybody to learn sign language. I think mandatory. That would infringe on other people's rights, and I wouldn't do that, no.
Okay, next. I could definitely see supporting making a language mandatory from like 2nd grade to 12th, but I also don't see any benefit, especially in this city, of making Spanish mandatory versus Chinese. Because you get a lot of people, if you learn Mandarin, you can make so much more money out here from all the Chinese visitors coming. Or you could choose to do sign language or any other language, but once again, that's also stretching the school's budget even more. So I wouldn't be against it per se, but also not sure if I could support it, especially on a federal level, trying to make that a federal law. That'd be more of a local thing.
Next. Go ahead.
I mentioned earlier that we need to make English the official language. When I come from a boy from Europe, I had to learn English. And then when you went to buy anything, if you couldn't speak English, you brought somebody that could. We need to emphasize English as a first and foremost language. So, and what is developing now is a divided country by allowing these foreign languages to prevail.
To your point and to your direct question, because this is a tourism city, and so you're asking a question that could help our city thrive. So when you're asking that question, I don't have the hard statistic as to what the cost versus benefit ratio is, so I'm not going to give you a direct yes, but I am very much in favor of making sure that we're expanding our languages across the board. I mean, almost every other country you go to, they actually have that as mandatory. So I want to see why they do and we don't. So I don't have that exact answer for you, but I am very much in favor of making sure that we're expanding that, and I do believe and see the huge benefits to doing it here specifically in Las Vegas, but all of Nevada.
Next question, please.
Good morning to the panel, and thank you for being here. My question is, and which I want to ask in general for the panel across the board, and what's weighing a lot of Nevadans, and especially here, citizens in the Valley area, is about crime, and also to piggyback a little bit with the tourism, because we are a tourism location here, is the crime rate. And
I'm so sorry, it's really hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm sorry about that. I thought you couldn't understand me. It's my Boston accent. All right. That's it. All right. Okay. All right. And I'm a transit, from Boston, but in the state of Nevada, the murder rate, and I did some research the other night, rose in 2019 from 113 murders to 131 murders in 2020. And then in 2021, there were 147 homicides throughout the valley. Metro works and they're taxed 44% more murders on 44% more murder cases in 21 than in 20. And many of the outlining factors, of course, brought to light COVID, assault, opportunity, financial hardship, and of course, domestic violence. Blame for these issues for public safety have been at the feet of lawmakers in Carson City who have passed bills in recent sessions decriminalizing minor traffic offenses, expediting pretrial release hearings, and aiming to reduce prison population. An example, bail reform, sentencing reform, and handcuffing of police. And in this state, it's indicative of the crime rates that are occurring across the United States. What are the representatives going to put forward in Nevada in order for the citizens to feel safe and also to be able to bring these people in for our towards, in economy here in Nevada. Thank you.
In case you didn't hear the question, the gist of it is there's an uptick, in murder rates. What are you guys going to do and implement to help the citizens of Nevada feel safe? Start right here. Go ahead.
Okay. So sorting out the uptick in crime with these challenging times we have now. Issues that I think are contributing. Let's do with it at Nevada. As a Nevada resident, what is the first thing you do for residents? I think that firearm possession is the number one issue. There are too many federal laws preventing people from getting a firearm in a timely manner, and I think it's
do me a favor. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead and put the mic down, or maybe somebody give him another mic, and we'll start your time over. Could be. I don't know.
You need to hold it like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Start over.
Yeah. So firearm, the individual right to bear a firearm, I think, is the number one issue we need to deal with for the residents. And number two, the police are prosecuting or coming into contact with too many people who commit nonviolent crimes. Just about a year ago, I wrote the commissioners when they had the decision on the police cases we've been having. So things like we've legalized marijuana here, but like prostitution, minor drug possessions. I just think the police have better things to do with their time than focusing on those issues. And then if they focused on the violent criminals, you'd have more space in jail and you'd actually be dealing with the problem.
Time. Thank you.
So what I've also been noticing, like more and more in the past few years across the country, maybe not necessarily in Nevada, is that they are reducing penalties for what they consider lesser crimes. Like I remember hearing in Wisconsin this past summer, you got kids stealing cars, going on joyrides, getting in wrecks, and being out on bail within 2 hours. Things like that, if you start doing that at a young age, then yeah, you're just going to keep on escalating, think you don't care because you're going to keep on getting out on bail. And then once you go down that road, then you get murders. And of course, also, you're always going to have murders come in with prostitution, drugs, stuff like that. Anything with money, you get enough money on the table, somebody's going to get desperate enough. And then also, spousal abuse, like stuff like that, there's only so much you can do. Helplines help, police help, but at the end of the day, you got to nip it in the bud when it's young, and you need to not just let slaps on the wrist if you go steal a car and go joyriding or something like that.
Thank you.
That's a really big question, and I can't answer it all in 60 seconds, but I'm going to do my best to give you some bullet points. So in December, you actually saw all over the news what was happening in Los Angeles, and they were likening the crime unto The Purge, if you've watched the movie The Purge. And so I sat down and I took a look because I wanted to see how we fared against Los Angeles. And in Las Vegas, we were 10 points higher in violent crime. Thus started my journey in finding out the reason why and the source and how we can fix it. Because yes, I do back the blue, but I don't want to just have a hashtag back the blue. I want to find out what I can do. And one of the fundamental pieces that they're talking about is more bodies. Why do we even need more bodies? Because they're not backfilling wrecks. So that's number one. But then I want to bring it back to the fact that I want to elevate the fact that police are incredible in schools again. Because if we don't have that conversation, if kids don't look up to them, if they just call them the po-po, and they run from the cops and all those different pieces, we're making them the enemy versus making them our friend. And so we do an education piece at the elementary level, and we start changing things at the core. Thank you.
This aspect of imprisoning somebody for life is a drain upon the budget of the state or the government. As later in the Bible, God said a life for a life. And that's exactly what should be taken when someone kills somebody, rapes somebody, you execute them and don't put a drain financially. That money needs to be applied to the health, safety, and welfare of U.S. citizens.
All right, next question from our panel, please.
My question is for all of the candidates. As senators, you would be facing a lot of foreign policy issues. Do you guys support the U.S. re-entering the JCPOA? And if you do, how do you think that's going to affect the safety and stability of not only Israel, but the Middle East and the Western world?
Start right here.
Oh.
I think Trump was on the right course with that JCPOA. So which would mean that we're on the wrong course now. The best way to deal with the situation in Israel was you have to put a tight grip on Iran and get the inspectors in there and deal with the ballistic missile issue. But they should be able to pursue nuclear energy as a viable option. I support developing nuclear energy. So I think for the JCPOA and Israel and the stability in the Middle East, actually Trump was actually on the right course with that, being firm with Iran while trying to increase the other Middle Eastern nations participating in the peace process. And moving the embassy to Jerusalem was the right step in that direction.
Okay, time. Next, please.
Also, for future reference, if you could hold the mic upward, that it helps.
Okay. Yeah.
Audio as well.
Okay, great. Go ahead and give him the mic. Go ahead, sir.
So I believe it was Teddy Roosevelt that said, walk softly and carry a big stick. And I kind of think we need to get back that as to our foreign policy in general. Like, we're America. We have the biggest force. But when we're spread all over the world, then we really don't do that. So I think Israel in particular, we need to show that we can do force, but at the same time, take it easy on sending bodies over there. Try not to get into skirmishes. Try not to lose more of our people. And something that really isn't our fight. We're America. We need to circle the wagons, take care of America, take care of our people. While at the same time, if something jumps off, be ready to get in there and help out.
To kind of piggyback on that, I think something that's important is doing what we say we're going to do from the beginning. Because right now, just saying we're going to join back again, we've shown that we're bad allies right now. To be honest, our international affairs are pretty much a mess. And so I want to look at possible additional options across the board, because we can't keep sending our troops, thinning out our individuals, our families, our brothers, our sisters, and not looking at the future and the repercussions of it. Do I believe that there's some good pieces? Absolutely. And we do need to move forward in making sure that we are, again, a strong ally. So that is my entire piece across the board. So thanks.
You know, when people meet, they each respect each other, and they're not going to commit themselves to that other person at their expense. And that's the situation with our involvement with other countries. Fine, we need a good relationship, but not to shell money out of our pocket and put a stress upon, first and foremost, U.S. People. We are the first and foremost to be considered.
All right, let's move on now to another question from another panel member.
Okay, I got a quick follow-up question. This is for all the candidates. Mr. Reed, I understand your answer to that question is in regards to foreign policy, and that seems to be kind of the trend that is going on right now, but I need each candidate to explain to me how isolationism has ever worked for the United States. We ran into this after the First World War. We pulled back from everything. And then the world went to mess, and then we had to jump in at the very end to try to change things. So I need each candidate to explain to me why they don't believe that we should have forces strategically placed around the world.
I'll go ahead and start off if that's okay.
Sure.
So I know exactly what you're saying. Like World War II, we didn't do anything until they bombed Pearl Harbor. So that actually got me thinking about the whole Russia-Ukraine situation right now. So even though I'm saying like we shouldn't have already had people in Ukraine, once Russia started making a move, I felt that we should have put people over there, kind of draw a line in the sand and say, if you take one step forward, you're going up against us. But at that point, we're walking softly and carrying that big stick. So we are the threat. We can make lines in the sand, but we don't need to be in all these different countries trying to force our will on those countries, per se.
I'm going to expand on that. So I apologize if you or I said something that made you think that I didn't want our presence there. So that wasn't what I was saying. What I'm saying is that right now that we still need to say that we're good allies when we are having our presence there. That is my big piece, because I have friends that I've spoke to after our debacle in Afghanistan. I said, please tell me how you're feeling. What's going on? And he said, I gave my word. I gave my word that we were going to back these allies up, and we didn't do it. So that's what's a big deal to me, being a people of our world, being a people of integrity. And yes, I do want a presence, because I think that, even looking back as far as the Romans, they saw when they came in, occupied a territory and left without leaving an advocate, they went back to their old ways. So we show it throughout history.
You said it right. I just want to refer to this lady here, express it exactly as I would, and I really appreciate her expression, because I reflected the same.
So the problem with our foreign policy is this. The problem with the foreign policy is this. The Congress has deferred way too much power to the executive branch. The president can issue sanctions, War Powers Act. He can literally declare war, and then the Congress is reactive. I think we need to bring the power back to the Congress, where Congress can use tariffs instead of sanctions as an indication of which direction they're going in. And certainly, we have to pull back on the War Powers Act, so that the president cannot just simply deploy troops or even take semi-kinetic action. The more power needs to move back from the executive back into the Congress, and I think we'll have a smoother foreign policy with tariffs to indicate a non-isolationism dealing with that.
And if you're just joining us online, streaming, and you're watching this, these are members who are running for Senate, and we have a lot of panel members here that are asking questions. Go ahead.
Earlier, you mentioned concealed carries and things like that. It's statistically proven that wherever concealed carries go up, crime rate goes down. But you have a lot of people in the Senate and Congress that are against the 2A movement. So they always try to use the well-regulated militia in the sentence of the 2A. Would you be opposed, or would you be for a bill that would allow, not force, but allow CCW instructors and holders to swear in to a well-regulated militia after they take their CCW class?
I don't think I'd go that route. I would more prefer going the route where I think Texas, and I think I forget which state last week or last month started allowing CCWs without training, without requiring training. I would more go the state route in preserving the state's right, but I would hope more states would go more what they used to call shall issue on a CCW.
Okay, next.
So I'm definitely all for CCW. I'm all for gun rights. As opposed to, when it comes to militias, though, I think it would have to be very well regulated, because you don't want a bunch of, no offense to anybody, but backwards country boys getting all hog wild with a bunch of guns saying, oh yeah, we're a militia. Instead, I think that you'd probably need at least some ex-military people and do, training, things like that. Because let's be honest, that's why I don't think somebody like Russia would ever try and invade us, because everybody thinks we got more guns than people, which we do. And that's why something like that is important. But at the same time, we need to make sure that, people aren't getting crazy, and it is kind of regulated and has some sort of order to it.
I was a backwoods country girl. I learned to shoot a gun when I was riding a tricycle. Gun safety was important in my family. We had them in the back of my window when we went to go to school. Something that's important to me is actually there's 25 states now that just joined the constitutional carry across the United States. I am very much a proponent of the CCW. I would actually want to take a look further as to what that would mean. So that would be my kind of pushback question. I'm understanding what you're asking. For me, across the board, I would want to know what the implication is, what the duty was, what the responsibility would be. But I'm a huge proponent of our CCW, our gun rights, and making sure that not only the people of Nevada, but the people of this nation are able to carry guns without red flag laws too.
Yeah, the Constitution stresses that because we had broken away from an oppressive country, and that constitutional rights to carry guns prevails. I want to add this, that in the Bible says the inclination of the heart of people is bad from youth up. Furthermore, is that people look to injure others. And the only way that this can be overcome is to stress, love your neighbor as yourself. And that's the focus point.
All right, next question from our panel.
I have a question for all of you. About 3 weeks ago, Iran launched missiles on a U.S. consulate in Iraq. The current administration did absolutely nothing in response. What would your response have been?
If you didn't hear that question, it was about Iran missiles being launched, and administration didn't seem to do anything. What would you guys do?
Well, could do a Soleimani too. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. I really don't know what we could do. The intransigence on Iran is just getting out of control. And like I said, I would have stuck with the Trump policy of, tight, hard sanctions to deal with the missile program also. That was one of his big concerns, to stop this intransigence. So I would have just continued that policy if you as it was then. I don't think there was much more you can do now.
Okay, time.
As much as I'd personally love to say we should just went like crazy on them and gotten revenge and vengeance and all that stuff, you really can't do that because A, you're just going to kill a bunch of innocent civilians anyway. I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier with our foreign policy. We need to make it we need to do something every time that happens, but we also need to make it to the point where people are scared to attack our embassies and scared to attack our ships. And yeah, so we should have reacted and done something swiftly, but I don't know personally what I would have suggested we did.
That was the second one that's happened within the past couple months. And the last one, they said it wasn't armed, that's going on with as far as foreign policy. A full investigation should have been done, and then we find out from that point what our next course of action should be.
Carlo?
How do we overcome such opposing attitudes to one another? Is for the reason is that we can't, because 1 John 5:19 says the whole world lies in the power of the evil one, and therefore that evil one that influenced Eve influences people to continue to do bad.
So we're going to have about 5 more minutes of questions, and then we're going to have to give everybody an opportunity here for a closing statement. So about 5 more minutes of questions.
So Again, go back to your duties as a senator. Right now, I'd like to find out what you would do if you're in the Senate and whether you would vote to confirm Supreme Court Justice Jackson, why or why not? Start.
For everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So while I don't share, all her views, I'm a firm believer elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. And Joe Biden won the election, and as a consequence of that, he gets to nominate a qualified person for the Supreme Court. So barring any medical, psychological, or just outlandish reasons, I think you must give the president the benefit of winning an election. And that's a consequence of winning.
So you'd vote yes, is that correct?
I would vote yes for her. I haven't seen any reason to vote no.
Time, thank you.
All right, I also would have to vote yes. Like, I haven't seen any reason why she isn't qualified. She's probably not the most qualified. I only say this because before picking her, Biden went out and said, I'm going to pick a black woman, which if he didn't say that and picked her, then I probably would have liked her a lot more. But the fact that he's trying to qualify it based on sex and race, personally, even as a Democrat, I don't like that. I think the job should go to the best person for the job. However, that's his nominee. I don't see any reason why she's not qualified. Therefore, she should get the job.
I'm glad you asked that question. People aren't paying enough attention to our judges at the Supreme Court and local levels. I would vote no. And I aggressively have already put out a radio ad specifically saying that we need to vote no on Jackson because I'm that passionate about it. There are many things that she aligns with and has spoken in favor of. It's not about her qualification. She is a brilliant woman. It is about her stances and I believe interjecting opinion into so many things that have implications for the entire United States is not the person we need in that position.
Well, I forgot to thank you for inviting me here. And I feel it's very important to listen to advice, and I would certainly want your advice to achieve what is a benefit for everyone.
Anybody else have any questions? Go right ahead.
If you wouldn't mind, just to double back on that, I am curious to know, as your position in U.S. Senate, Neil Scott, you think that you don't have a say, or that you should just give it up to Joe Biden because that was the consequence of the election? Because to me, it is your job to represent us as the people, not just hand it over to the president because he's the president. So I would like more of your thought process on that, please.
So, like, I didn't say just hand it off to him. I said any physical, mental, or outlandish decisions or behavior, just anything just out of the norm. But once the president has nominated somebody and, you vetted them and they fall within what we consider acceptable norms for, I guess, a Supreme or a federal judge even, I don't think you just bar a nominee based on your personal beliefs or even political. You say you should have settled that at the election, the preceding election. And I haven't seen anything where she's outlandish or way out in her ruling. So
thank you.
I believe we owe the president that much respect.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I've got a follow-up for Mr. Reid. And by the way, thank you for your answer to that question, Ms. Mendenhall. I thought it was very well thought out, and you clearly understand the subject. Mr. Reid, the fact that Judge Jackson was extremely lenient on a consistent basis on pedophiles, you don't think that's a good reason to not vote for her?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've read a bit about Ms. Jackson. Now, if I was already in Senate, I would do a full check on her, but I don't get a choice to vote. So I read, a couple articles about her. I read a little background about her. I'm not 100% sure on her pedophile stance. Personally, I think it's disgusting. At the same time, you gotta throw the pedophile question at me. I think sort of if we just throw them in jail for life, that doesn't really help anybody. We need to get them help. We need to get them psychology. We need to do what we can to make sure it doesn't happen. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't really done that much research into her and pedophilia. So I'm really not prepared for that question. Sorry about that. However, if I was going to vote, I would have done much more research.
For the record, I will say there are some on the Supreme Court right now that have very similar records to her record when it comes to this. Next question for anybody on the panel, please.
Yes, I'll try to keep this shorter than the last one. Mine last question here is just on energy independence. When you go to D.C., I'm sort of a backwoods country boy myself. I drive a Ford F-250 and I go to these pumps. And what we're paying now in fuel costs is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's hurting the everyday Nevada at the pumps. When the last administration was in there, of course, we had South Dakota, Alaska, Texas, Keystone was in the works right there. We were energy independent. Costs were down. But now, under this administration, we're going back to the Middle East. We're going back to Qatar. We're going back to Saudi. We're going back to the UAE. We have to crawl into Venezuela to try to do it. And we're at the will of these countries now. Saudi Aramco's a monster over there, and they can dictate what it's going to cost us in order to import this oil back here. We got to subject our personnel to go over there, oil industry personnel, military personnel, over to these countries in order to make sure this oil gets back to here safe. What's going to be your stance when you get to Washington, D.C., in order to try to get a grip on these costs, bring these costs down, and also to get these areas going for our people in our oil industry here in America?
Stephen, is this for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
So, being a libertarian, of course, I support removing all the restrictions that the Biden administration put in with the executive's orders banning, drilling and offshore drilling and all that stuff. So I would support a more vigorous fossil fuel production capacity, refining capacity. However, I don't think just dealing with fossil fuels deals with our complete energy need. And I think there has to be a serious discussion in America and globally with regards to nuclear energy. I don't think fossil fuel and I don't think renewable energies are going to solve our future energy needs. And with climate change and all that, nuclear has to be in the mix.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm really glad you asked this question, because the prices now remind me about the prices, I think, around 2002 when it first started getting up to $4 a gallon. And they're like, oh, eventually it'll come back down. Once you let this Pandora out the box, we're never going to get below $4 a gallon again, just because everybody will pay it because you get used to it. Now, this is one problem that I've had with the Democrats personally, is like I was saying before, when they're going at breakneck speed towards what they want to get. And right now that's renewable energy, which is great. Let's move towards renewable energy, but we can't forget, in the meantime, we're still relying on oil and coal and all that stuff. So we should have still been energy dependent and then slowly moved towards more solar, more wind power. Nuclear energy is now safer than ever, so nuclear energy is definitely a possibility. But we can't just abandon oil and whatnot, because then people like us who are paying $5 a gallon can't afford to get to work or can't afford to do stuff. But of course, the guys in DC making these decisions, well, they're driving around in limos and they don't really care.
Next.
So I have three pieces to this. I think it's an education piece as far as moving forward as well. There is oil in Oklahoma. We do have resources here statewide. I am aggressively in favor of making sure that we're energy independent. When we're talking about how Elon Musk has even said that we need to make sure that we're, bringing the gas, the oil, the pipeline, things like that back. That's a huge statement. With that said, as things move forward, and there will be people who are buying the electric, we need to make sure we're protecting the electric. So that is through EMPs, because just with the Navy or over our specific buildings, we do not have that security as we move forward progressively. Because again, I want to make sure that I'm able to go drive out in the middle of nowhere and not get stopped because I don't have a charging station in the middle of nowhere. People need to realize how lithium is mined and how much fossil fuels it takes in order to mine that. So just as far as solutions, whether it's nuclear, whatever renewable energy, we need to make sure that we're looking for our future and we're not at this point of it's $6, we're now panicking, what do we do now? We need to make sure that we're building the infrastructure going forward and having that talk track so people aren't shocked in 10 years. We're like, hey, we're gonna start transitioning to X, Y, or Z.
Carlo?
I'll tell you this much, my parents' generation was the easiest in the world, and today we're experiencing critical times, difficult to deal with. I was looking on the internet, and prices in 1935 were something so comfortable with in comparison to today. For example, a house costs around $600. Now today you're looking at $200,000 or better. You can't even buy a house, a rundown house, for $50,000. But it's very, very terrible what we have to experience today, and it's going to get worse. The virus indicated that the tail horse, and it was worldwide first time. The next, with this weather condition, we're going to experience famine to severity.
All right, so now this is the portion where each candidate will be given around 1 minute or so to make a closing statement, since we have some time constraints here. So I'll start right here. Mr. Scott, go right ahead.
So first I want to thank Veterans in Politics for having me. Our country is facing some very challenging decisions right now. And I look forward to representing the state of Nevada and the United States in the Senate. I just wanted to touch on one point. Like I said, I think we need greater participation in our military, or in all branches of our military. But I think we have to be careful how we move forward and how we get that and deal with the issues, not only with the military, but with the veterans once they've served. How do you get them into businesses and into, the private sector? And I think we do that with a sales tax on for if you don't hire military personnel. I don't think the state can provide veteran care and everything. I think we have to get more veterans into the private sector, and you'll solve a lot of that.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Appreciate that. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
All right, well, thanks again for having me. Basically, just want to put it out there, my whole thing is less about the specific issues and more how we go about moving on forward. Like, for example, raising the minimum wage. I think it should be raised to coincide with cost of living increases and such. But the way they're trying to do it from what is it now, $8 an hour to trying to double it to $15, you can't do that. You got to do everything gradually. Same with anything else you can think of, it needs to be gradual so the market can adjust, individuals can adjust, and everybody can still survive and still keep their jobs. But yeah, besides that, I just want to thank you guys for letting me here, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Your repetition becomes your reputation. Right now in politics, there are so many people who don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole and even more because of how corrupt it is. It has become synonymous. When you talk about politics, you talk about corruption. We need people of character in office again because there are so many different questions that haven't even been asked today. There are so many things that come up throughout the years of your term that you don't get to ask those questions. You need to know that there's a person of character that's going to be voting in favor of the people when they're in that office. I also want to inspire the younger generation to want to be leaders again, because sometimes it's not just about doing your job in Washington and voting on bills. It's about being a leader and inspiring the next generation to get involved at the state, local level and pay attention to judges. Elevate those conversations. My name is Sherelle Mendenhall, and I'm going to do my part to mend the nation.
Again, the Bible scripture says two are better than one. If one fails, the other's there. And I think it's very important that someone that is entering a candidacy to represent the people, that he or she develop a closer relationship, in this case with Veterans of Politics, for advice beneficial to the public.
Candidates, thank you very much. Appreciate that. In about 10. Appreciate your time. For those that are watching online, in about 10 minutes or so, we'll have plenty of candidates that are running for governor next. Thank you very much.